The Magic of Reality: How We Know What's Really True, by Richard Dawkins, is a science-focused exploration aimed at explaining the natural world and debunking myths, legends, and superstitions. Dawkins contrasts ancient stories with scientific explanations, presenting a clear and accessible account of how science allows us to understand reality. Each chapter starts with a common myth or question, followed by Dawkins' breakdown of the scientific truth behind it. Dawkins begins by emphasizing the importance of distinguishing between myth and reality. While myths can be entertaining or morally instructive, they often lack the explanatory power of science. Dawkins argues that science offers more than just explanations. It provides the wonder and magic of discovering how the universe truly works. He draws a line between the magical thinking found in myths and the magic of reality, which is rooted in evidence and reason. The book's central idea is that reality, as understood through science, is more astonishing and awe-inspiring than any myth or legend. By appreciating the natural world through scientific investigation, Dawkins believes that we can find a deeper sense of wonder and magic in life. Dawkins introduces the concept of reality by asking, how do we know what is real? He encourages critical thinking and skepticism, urging readers to question their assumptions about the world. He explains that the human senses are limited, and while they help us navigate everyday life, they can be deceiving. Reality, he suggests, is what we can verify through evidence and reasoning, which science offers the most reliable means of accessing. He also introduces the idea that reality is not always immediately accessible. Sometimes, we need to use instruments or methods to reveal things beyond our senses, such as atoms, distant galaxies, or the behavior of viruses. Scientific tools like telescopes, microscopes, and other technologies have expanded our understanding of reality far beyond what ancient people could imagine. Each chapter opens with a myth or a commonly held belief from different cultures that attempts to explain natural phenomena, such as the origin of life, the cause of earthquakes, or why rainbows form. Dawkins treats these myths respectfully, but contrasts them with scientific explanations that provide more accurate, evidence-based answers. For instance, in discussing the mythological explanations for rainbows, Dawkins acknowledges their beauty and cultural significance, but then provides a scientific breakdown of how light diffracts through water droplets in the atmosphere, creating the colors we see in a rainbow. He explains how myths offer imaginative but ultimately flawed interpretations of the natural world, whereas science reveals the truth through empirical evidence. Dawkins uses these contrasts to illustrate a broader point, that scientific explanations, though sometimes counterintuitive, are more satisfying and reliable than myths, which often stem from human limitations in understanding the world. In one of the most fundamental chapters, Dawkins addresses the question of how everything began, contrasting creation myths from various cultures with the scientific theory of the Big Bang. He explains that ancient peoples often turned to gods and supernatural beings to explain the origin of the universe, because they lacked the tools of scientific inquiry. However, modern science offers a more convincing explanation through the Big Bang theory, which is supported by astronomical evidence. Dawkins clarifies that the Big God does not need a divine creator, and that the universe's origin is a subject of ongoing scientific investigation. While we don't have all the answers yet, he argues that science is the best tool for uncovering them. He also discusses the concept of time, pointing out that asking what happened before the Big Bang may not even make sense, because time itself began with the Big Bang. In discussing the sun, Dawkins explains how ancient civilizations often worshipped the sun as a god, or believed it to be a chariot ridden across the sky by a deity. He compares these myths with our current understanding of the sun as a massive ball of burning gas that generates energy through nuclear fusion. Dawkins uses the sun to explore the concept of energy and how life on Earth depends on it. He explains how photosynthesis converts sunlight into energy, which sustains life, and how the sun's life cycle will eventually lead to its demise. This scientific explanation is grounded in evidence from physics and astronomy, showing that while the sun is central to life on Earth, it is not a divine being, but a natural object, governed by the same laws of physics that govern the rest of the universe. As in many chapters, Dawkins uses rainbows to contrast myth and science. Ancient cultures often saw rainbows as symbols of gods, or bridges to other worlds. Dawkins explains the physics of light refraction, showing how rainbows are natural phenomena caused by the interaction of sunlight with water droplets. The explanation of how different wavelengths of light refract at different angles, producing the colors we see in a rainbow, serves as a metaphor for the clarity that science brings to the mysteries of the natural world. Rather than diminishing the beauty of a rainbow, Dawkins argues that understanding its cause enhances our appreciation of it. In addressing the problem of evil, Dawkins explores how different cultures have used myths and gods to explain why bad things, such as natural disasters, happen. He critiques the idea that such events are the result of divine punishment or the will of capricious gods. Instead, Dawkins provides scientific explanations for natural disasters, such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and disease. He emphasizes that while science may not offer comforting explanations for these tragedies, it does provide more accurate and useful information, which can help us prevent or mitigate the effects of such events. For example, understanding the causes of earthquakes allows us to build safer buildings and take precautions, while knowing the biological causes of disease helps in developing treatments and cures. Dawkins tackles the common myth of a first human, often embodied in stories like Adam and Eve. He explains that evolution by natural selection does not work in such a way that there was ever a single first human. Instead, humanity emerged gradually from earlier hominid species, and the distinction between humans and their ancestors is arbitrary. He emphasizes that evolution is a slow, continuous process, and there is no clear dividing line where non-human became human. This understanding is supported by fossil evidence, genetic studies, and comparative anatomy, which show how modern humans evolved from earlier species over millions of years. Dawkins delves into the question of extraterrestrial life, addressing both the myths of gods descending from the heavens and the scientific possibility of life existing elsewhere in the universe. He discusses the vastness of the universe and the possibility that, given the right conditions, life could exist on other planets. While we have no evidence of extraterrestrial life yet, Dawkins stresses that the scientific search for life beyond Earth is ongoing, and if life does exist elsewhere, it would likely follow the same evolutionary principles that shaped life on Earth. Throughout the book, Dawkins returns to the idea that science itself is magical, not in the sense of the supernatural, but in the way it reveals the wonders of the universe. He argues that understanding reality through science is not only more accurate, but also more enriching than relying on myths and superstitions. The magic of reality lies in the astonishing complexity and beauty of the natural world, which science allows us to explore and understand.